Welcome back. Well, let's say you're just starting out and you ruined a pizza. Forget about it. The man who can really tell us all about that, Rocco, is here. And Rocco, I tell you what, you have experienced a lot in life, and you boiled it down now to your passions in life. Tell us a little bit about your history.
Well, the history when I was young was that I was raised in an Italian family, and my roots were my great-grandfather in Italy, who was called Don Francesco Morelli, if you know what I mean. So, but you know, there's that whole secret society. My grandfather tried to leave that behind and came to America in 1920 with my grandmother and started a family and a business, but it just seemed to haunt him, and you know, that whole La Cosa Nostra, the mafia thing. So the family in New York, and then we have my grandfather moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where my dad and his siblings were born, and so he was the third generation, and I was born as a fourth generation. So I was never supposed to be part of this thing of ours, but when I discovered who my family was, I unfortunately fell into that same trap. But later on in life, I was about 27. I was part of the Pizza Connection, the real, you know, we had pizza shops and restaurants, but the real money was unfortunately in the narcotics and the drug distribution in America. And so we laundered our money. But my mother was a faithful, praying mother that prayed every day for 12 years, and I was that prodigal son. And the day I was about to do a hit and cross over and be made in the mafia, I went to a gospel meeting. I took the guy with me that I was going to whack, Tony, and that was my alibi. But there was a guy there that worked for Jimmy Hoffa giving his story and testimony like I'm sharing with you, and he talked about redemption, how he was about to kill his own attorney, but his praying wife and a whole group of ladies used to meet to pray, and he went to a meeting and found the Lord and found redemption. He had a call to anybody that would like to give their life to Christ to come forward. It was about 1,000 people. It was at the Holiday Inn. It wasn't in a church because I wouldn't go to church in those days. I figured there was no hope for me, and I had crossed and broken all of God's commandments. But I went to that altar weeping like a baby that night and said, God, if you could save him, can you save me? And there was no turning back. So I had to go through a lot of things, including prison, but that's where my ministry began. And then a man by the name of Chuck Colson from Prison Fellowship Ministry became one of my mentors. I worked for him for years and then started my own ministry. So now here we are 24 years later, Rocco Morelli Ministries International. I travel the world, but my passion has always been food from my grandmother and my mother. And so when I met Franco and Steve, it was like, hey, Steve is also a pastor. He's part of my ministry. And Franco says, let's all go in business together. And so we have Franco's Gourmet, and we're also we're going to be coming out with a food line. And why we met this gentleman is because we're going to do some food trucks here coming up this year. And this is the perfect oven that we could use to be mobile. So that's how I'm here today. So I believe it was a divine appointment, as my friend said.
Very exciting story. Your restaurant just outside of Cleveland, is that right?
Yeah, well, Franco's Pizzerias, we actually, in the last 2 years, Franco's liquidated his restaurants. We can't say when we're working on opening another one. Being that I live in Orlando, Florida now, I'm trying to get one in Orlando. So we're in negotiations with some people that are going to help us and a few investors as well. So, you know, the next year is going to be pretty busy.
It sounds like it. And Ajit, this sounds like a story that all of your wood-fired owners really need to hear. Very inspirational.
I'll tell you, Bill, you know, one of the biggest challenges has been for fire within oven owners because we are primarily a wood-fired cooking, you know, we do Neapolitan cooking. Dr. Jackson, one of my oven owners, actually this oven right behind us, going to go to Bermuda, his first question was, Ajit, I have trouble finding wood. And, you know, when you say it's a divine intervention, we really mean it. Who do I run into at the Pizza Expo? Rocco, right? So they are, I mean, that's their specialty. They supply wood and they ship it overseas. So when Tim Jackson and Rocco met, it was meant to be. It was meant to be. So every one of our fire within oven owners should know about his company, and this is a lifesaver for us.
Well, thank you. It's a God appointment, and I believe and pray at the beginning of a great relationship that we can work together and help each other and help others out there as well. And you know, I share my book also, Forget About It, From Mafia to Ministry, and And so the other part is I have a screenwriter now, and we're going to do a Hollywood movie is coming up too. So I'll be able to share a lot more. So we'll have to get all this, into the movie somehow, because back in the day, we were in our own pizza restaurants doing business, right? So
right.
Hey, we can have your oven and maybe a few of the other chefs. Chef Franco already, he says he's going to be making the pizzas, though. So,
We'll
and we'll put them in your oven.
Chianti, and it's going to be
great,
right?
Yeah, that's it.
Well, Rocco, thank you so much for being on, and Aja, thank you for the introduction.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Bill.